Hello, this is Jim McKeeth, and welcome to Supercharging Your GUI with Skia4Delphi. I'm going to be using some slides that I used in a webinar previously. There's a couple updates to them, but I will go through them differently and have some potentially, hopefully, different demos for you as well. Now, if you're here and you're not sure what Skia is, well, you've come to the right place. Don't worry if you're not familiar with it. It's a fairly new library, but I am very excited about Skia and Skia4Delphi. So I want you to all imagine that you're software developers and you want to reach all the major platforms. All right. Hopefully that's not too big a stretch for you, but why don't you just think about that? Imagine what that might be like for a minute. So the traditional choices, and you may have heard this before, is you have the native approach where you get direct access to the hardware, but you have separate code for each platform. So you've got a Visual Studio project, you have an Xcode project, you have an Android Studio project, you have a GCC project for Linux. All right, that's your traditional approach, native access to the hardware, but separate code for each platform. Then you have the web, cloud, or some sort of hybrid approach where it's mostly shared code, but it's detached from the hardware. And now there's also some other, you know, in there that are these not very good cross-platform solutions out there. But we're going to group those over there on the right-hand side. So you have this choice to make through traditional choice, right? Do you want to get the direct access to the hardware and all that amazing goodness, and be stuck with having to maintain separate projects? Or do you want to have a single project that works across all platforms, but you're more detached from the hardware? Well, luckily, you've probably heard about this thing called FireMonkey. FireMonkey makes it easy to create cross-platform applications. It's natively compiled, so it gives you direct access to the platform hardware. It's multi-platform. One code base runs across all the platforms. The component-based visual designer maximizes your productivity. So what does this have to do with Skia? Well, Skia is a new library from Google where Google's trying to accomplish that same thing. Skia is a common 2D API that works across a variety of platforms, abstracting away the complexities of working with each of those platforms, and automatically calls into Vulkan, DirectX, Metal, etc., to achieve multiple or optimum performance. So it's basically Google's version of FireMonkey. It was originally an open source, or it was originally by a different company, but Google acquired it, and it supports a whole variety of platforms you see here. So yeah, it's everywhere. It has a lot of features. I'm not going to list all these. The slides will be available. I do want to call out it does support lots of different graphic formats, including SVGs, which I'm a huge fan of, anything vector related, and Lottie files. And then the newer WebP and WebM that are the new formats you see on the web for graphic, video, and image compression. Has all of the great anti-aliasing PDF supports, advanced font support, which includes things like, I can't think what it's called, kerning. Oh, what's it called? Yeah, but it has great font support. We'll talk a little about that hopefully more later. And it has full support for right to left languages and left to right languages, Unicode, and then image filters and shaders, which we're going to definitely talk about more later. I think shaders are so cool. Basically, it's the secret in a game. You take your textures and you apply shaders to them, and the shaders are what make those textures look really good in a game. So Skia4Delphi is an open source library for Delphi that uses a modified fork of Google Skia to make Skia available to Delphi. So it's modified in that the interfaces are changed to make it easier to work with from Delphi. It's cross-platform, works across all the platforms you would use Delphi for. It's a 2D library for Delphi. So it brings all of Skia to Delphi. And these are the brains behind Skia4Delphi, Vinicius and Paulo. It's a couple brothers from Brazil. They were the 2021 Spirit of Delphi winners. I think very rightly deserved. These guys have worked really, really hard on this library, and it's very useful and very popular. Well, hopefully, and maybe you haven't heard of it before, but if not, you've definitely heard of it now. Go check it out. It's available on GitHub. And I do want to make a shout out to Ian Barker. He originally worked with me on these slides. And also, he and myself have been encouraging and these guys quite a bit. They really appreciate it. So they asked that we do include our names on here as well, even though they've done all the work. So easy to use and it's open source, just turnkey, ready to go. It's compatible with XE7 and newer for Windows. In 10.3, it has Windows and Android. And then as of 11, it supports Delphi 11 supports all the Delphi platforms. Although they don't have iOS simulator that was added in 11.2, but it is on the roadmap. And I looked and it said it's scheduled for 17 days. So I don't know if it's going to land in 17 days or not, but it is something they're working on. I've talked to them. I know they're working on it as well. So it should be available very soon. It is available via Get or you can download it directly from them. Just install it from Get works great and installs beautifully there. They do have other installer downloads, or you can download the source too. So the library is split into three conceptual parts. There's the Skia API, there's some controls for VCL and FireMonkey, and then there's app rendering. And so we're going to talk about each of these parts individually and show you what you can do with these. And so the great thing is it actually makes it easy to kind of ease into taking advantage of Skia. The Skia API is the fundamental part that is the pure access to the Google Skia library. There's skia.pass gives you access to the library. So if you just want to get the minimum of taking advantage of it, you can use the Skia pass. Then there's controls. You have the Skia animated image, the Skia label, the Skia paint box, and the Skia SVG. The SVG loads icons, SVGs, lets you change colors, wrap mode, etc. Animated image will play Lottie files, which I'll tell you a little bit more about in a little bit. And I never know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, as well as Telegram stickers, animated GIFs, and WebPs. Skia label is a text label, but has multiple styles in text, font weight, justify alignment, and so on and so forth. And then the paint box is uses onDraw event to draw with the Skia API directly on the control. And then app rendering. And this is the part that you're going to probably want to take advantage of right away. It is a single 2 lines of code may be changed to an existing FireMonkey application, and it switches the rendering engine over from FireMonkey to Skia. So it's an optional feature. You can turn it on, and it says 1 line of code, but it's technically 2. I'll show you what it is in a second here. And it'll improve the quality of the drawings, smooth out jagged edges, and also improve graphics performance. And now I'm a big fan of FireMonkey, but I'll tell you what, everybody I've talked to that's tried this has fallen in love with immediately. It increases drawing fidelity and adds support for right to left languages. There was an MVP I was talking to that's a huge fan of FireMonkey, and he hadn't heard about Skia, and he tried it, and he said it fixed all of the issues he was having with FireMonkey in his programs. And so he was just ecstatic. Again, I like FireMonkey. I'm not trying to disparage it, but this is a great library. And, you know, it makes sense. Google has a lot of engineers they put behind Skia to make it great and work across all these platforms. And so to be able to leverage this from your Delphi applications is just phenomenal. So here's the 2 lines you have to add to your project file, skia.fmx to your uses clause, and then you just say global use Skia equals true. And that enables the Skia canvas. That's all you have to do to your existing FireMonkey application to take advantage of Skia rendering. Here's some benchmarks just showing you the performance improvement you can get across multiple devices. The differences are bigger on the older, slower devices. On the newer devices, they're both pretty fast. But you can see the red is Skia and the blue is FireMonkey. And you can see for some reason the MacBook Air model, the ARM MacBook Air is faster in FireMonkey than Skia. So you might want to look to see what platform you're running on, turn it off. But everywhere else, it's about the same or much faster to use Skia. And actually, that might be improved in an upcoming release. That's something they're working on, I know. So from an architecture point of view, if you just want to add Skia to an application, you need to right click on it and say enable Skia. And what this does is it deploys the Skia DLL or Skia libraries with your application. It's all handled automatically. You don't have to think about it. There's native libraries for all the platforms. And that's what you have to do. If you don't do that, then you'll need to manually deploy it or you'll get an error at runtime, especially if you're deploying it to a different computer. They have a lot of great documentation, by the way, out on their on their GitHub page. So go check that out if you want more information about any of this stuff. The real quick for the redistributables, and this is as of the 3.4.1 release from August. So they should have a new release coming out fairly soon. I expect that might be the 17 days I saw in the roadmap. This is the size of the redistributables. And I believe they talked about working on a static linking option. So, ooh, maybe, I don't know. That would be fantastic to see, especially on Windows platforms. On the other platforms, you typically are distributing an app bundle anyway. So, not as big of a deal there, but there you go. So one of the things it adds is the render quality through anti-aliasing. So that's an example of what anti-aliasing looks like. So you can see this is zoomed in, right? But this is what it looks like on the screen. So hopefully you can see this one looks a lot smoother here. And the reason is because it leaves. Anti-aliasing adds these additional pixels in here that are shaded part way. Whereas here, they're either on or off. So this is traditional, whereas this is anti-aliasing, which improves your render quality. Now I want to talk about SVG. I am a huge fan of scalable vector graphics. They are phenomenal. And honestly, I've done entire hour-long conversations just on vector graphics before because I think they're fantastic. But what they are, vector graphics, if you're not familiar with them, is they're resolution-independent scalable graphics. You can easily apply styles to them and change them around losslessly. There's no loss compression when you save them. For icons and application graphics, using SVGs is fantastic and way better over static images like PNG. There's a lot of free options out there and tools and libraries to work with them. Adobe Illustrator creates SVGs and Inkscape are two vector animators or vector graphics tools that work for SVGs. Now I'll talk about Lottie animations or Lottie animations. Lottie, I think it would be Lottie. Yeah. I'm terrible at pronunciations. It's unreal. They're they're not based on SVGs, but they're similar in concept to SVGs in that they are vector animations. They're JSON based, whereas SVGs XML based, and they're resolution independent and scalable vector graphics. They're lightweight, 600% smaller when compared to a GIF, and they're really smooth performance. Interestingly, if you want to know the history of them, these were invented by Airbnb as a way to create animations for their applications that would work on the web, mobile apps, and desktop apps. So they can have a consistent animation format for their user interfaces in their applications. There's a plugin that you can use to export them from Adobe After Effects. So you can create the animations in Adobe After Effects and export them out into Lottie files. Essentially, if you use vector animations in Adobe After Effects can do a huge variety of things. So if you create your vector graphics in Illustrator and then load them into After Effects, animate them in After Effects, you can export them as a Lottie file. Lottie file. That's what I decided it was. So again, vector graphics look great, especially around fonts as well. You can see much smoother looking on the right than here on the left. Infinitely resizable and scalable, which I want to show you what that means here. So this is a graphic for the Enigma machine, which was used by the Germans in World War II to encrypt. Very cool, I think, technology. And this is a logo for it in a graphic file format. Now, this is part of the source. Maybe it is all the source. I don't think it is. It might be all the source. No, it's probably part of the source of of an XML SVG file. So it's an XML and it can be compressed as XML with zip, which is automatically done when transferring on the web or building up an installer, right? So it gets compressed, takes up hardly any space at all that way. whereas PNGs and JPEGs are binary and they're already compressed. Now, I do want to mention real quick the difference between PNGs and JPEGs. PNGs are great for when you have a lot of solid colors and with very little like gradual changes, whereas JPEGs are great for photographs where the colors kind of just gradually fade into each other. That's what's good for JPEGs. If you compress an image that should be a PNG as a JPEG, it looks bad because you'll get those compression artifacts instead of the sharp lines that separate the differences. How you'll see it does. It tries to anti-alias it essentially. If you dive into how JPEG works, it's actually really interesting, but it's not able to recreate the image exactly, and you get some strange behaviors. So JPEG is lossy, PNG is lossless. So what the image size comparisons are, if you take that Enigma logo and you compress it in a zip file, then it's 2 kilobytes. If you uncompress the 16 kilobytes, and those are vector, you can zoom them up as big as you want, no problem. It's always going to look great. Whereas if you do it in a JPEG or PNG, you can see the sizes get much, much, much larger. If you do here, this is to show that PNG is better because if you do a JPEG at 99% compression, which won't look as good as a PNG at 100% quality, it's technically, shouldn't say 100% there, it's just a PNG. But the JPEG is much larger for the same image size. Now, there's no image size on the vector files because they're vector. So this is a lossless raster image. These are raster images. Raster images have pixels, whereas vector images describe mathematically how a line should move. And then here you can see zooming in on that image. Here's the JPEG. So we can see the PNG, it's just zoomed in. We have big pixels. Whereas the JPEG, we have these blocky weirdness going on. And then this was in Beyond Comparison. You can see the difference between the two, as if it's not obvious. And so SVG, there it is, zoomed in as much as you want, way smaller file, and looks great no matter how much you zoom in on it. A lot of animations. Again, they're vector based. So we see the TGS, which is a zipped JSON file, is 55 kilobytes for this animation here. Whereas if you make an MP4 of it, it's 373 kilobytes, or if it's uncompressed, it's 583 kilobytes. I don't know why you'd have it uncompressed. I mean, I guess you'd compress it for transferring in zip or whatever, but then once it got to disk, it makes sense to leave it uncompressed. Disk space kind of is considered infinite anymore, it seems like. If you look at pretty much anything you install, if you go with a GIF, then you'll see it's 5 megabytes, 90 times larger than the compressed one. So a great place, like I said, the Airbnb originally designed it for user interface design. You can use it for loading animations, toggle switches, which I think is great there. As you toggle a switch, it animates what it's doing, and then hamburger icons, other user interface elements. There's a lot of these are available easily online. You can find all 3 of these I got from Lodi files, which are free. Or if you're working with a designer and they use After Effects and Adobe Illustrator, they can design great parts of your user interface that, nice transitions and such. Export them with the body movement plugin, which is the plugin for Lodi files, and load them up into your application. And you can have all sorts of great looking animations in your application. All right, so let's do some demonstrations and show you some of the stuff you can do with Skia4Delphi. This really simple FireMonkey example. It's your traditional CD bouncer, I guess you call it. It just bounces on the screen, and you can wait for it to hit the corners eventually. Almost pretty simple, fun little thing here. There's like hardly any code to it at all. The only code is the updates the dimensions of the animation, so it knows when to stop, when you resize, create the application. That's all the code. It's all done with the animations, such as animation in position X, animation in position Y, and they're not quite the same duration. realistically, I should change that based on like the width and height, but it's simple. And then I'd used a color key animation to do the color changing. And I just put the keys in here, uh, red, orange, yellow, each one broken out in the percentage of how much time it's going to be up there. So simple FireMonkey application, work across all the platforms, and I'm going to enable Skia. So if I look in the project right now, there's no Skia in here now. If I right click and say enable Skia, there we go. It's now global use Skia. You're not going to notice any difference at all on the Windows machine. It's plenty fast enough that it works great, but you will notice a difference on some other platforms. Oh, hey, we got a corn in there. Perfect. You guys all saw it recorded live. um, yeah, you will notice on some other platforms as well. And you'll also notice the circle will be much rounder because of anti-aliasing on mobile devices. On Windows, it automatically has the anti-aliasing, but not mobile devices, unless you're using Skia. So that's the basics of how to enable the Skia canvas. This is using Skia shaders and an SK animated paint box. So a shader is a program that runs on your GPU, usually for graphical effects, although you can use it for all sorts of purposes. So this, what you see here is the shader source code. It's just displayed in a memo for convenience at design time. It's not visible at runtime. And what I have here is I have a number of sliders. And so these sliders, each of these sliders map to a different one of these parameters here that I can then change in the code. And so you can see time is, well, okay, zoom is right there, stability, soften, speed, but there's time. So all of these are allow you to tweak the shader as it's running. The code is pretty straightforward. At create, all we do is set the animation duration to a large number that just turns the animation on, and then we run the shader, which we are coming here. We're going to clear out our sort of effect is the runtime effect, and SK paint are here. We're just setting those to nil, and we're going to make a shader from the memo one text, check to make sure we didn't get an error. And then we create it into the shader and run it in the paint box. And in the paint box, in the drawing in here, we check to see if it's assigned. If it is assigned, then we're going to look to see if we have a uniform, which is the term for that type of variable I put in here. So remember, these are uniform floats. So if they're in here, then I'm going to say if resolution exists, then we set it as it's a uniform float. Then we set it as right here, the resolution of the width and height, and then speed. We should technically check to make sure these exist too, but I'm not. I'm just setting them based on the sliders. All right, so I'm going to run this now, and I think it's pretty cool, but you might not find it near as interesting as I do. So you can come in here and just tweak these here a little bit and change this around. Some of these are more interesting than others as far as when you change them. So that one makes it more uniform, whereas this one makes it, like out here, it gets like staticky. And this is going to look terrible. I just realized in the video compression. And then this is the time. And so it kind of lets you move through time so you can back up the motions of it, if you will. Anyways, this is just something I was playing with for shaders. You can find a lot of information about shaders. There's a website, Shader Toy, where you can, which is where I got this one from. And you can tweak them and load them into Skia. Oh, it's the memo is still back there, so you can see the cursor. That's interesting. I didn't notice that before. I'll have to hide it at runtime. Let's do that. Create memo one dot hide. Oops. There you go. So now it doesn't have that T bar in there. This is my shader viewer. It actually has a number of shaders you can work with and edit the source code and a few other things, as well as has mouse interactivity. So right now, this is just rendering a marble that's slowly turning here. There is, let's see, me a little more ones that uses mouse. I think this is the one. Yeah, so this one is Julia Fractal, and we can turn on mouse interaction here, and we can see it interacting with the mouse. So it's moving on its own, but then as I move the mouse, it does cool things as well. Make this even bigger. There's a whole bunch of these in here you can play with. Most of them don't have mouse interactivity on them. Turn that back off. Oh, I love this one. It's so cool. Mandelbrot set. And again, I realize this is not going to come through very well on the video, but you can download this. It's all up on SourceForge. I started this as a sample for the original webinar I did, but then I had a number of people that contributed and added some features to it and fixed some things. Olaf added the frames per second display down here at the bottom and also made sure it worked across all the platforms. There's so many cool ones in here. This one's neat. Looks like an iris, right? And so each of these, actually, let me go up to the iris here. The source code's here on the side, and you can see the source code that is used to run the shader. And so you can actually, if you wanted to, come in here and tweak this and make changes to it, and it would update here. So if you're working on shader, let's find one that's what it has. No, that was not simpler. Neon Plasma. There we go. So if I wanted to make a change here to this, change that to a 5, no idea what that's going to do, and hit run, and it'd make a lot of difference. Let's try something here. So a little more. Change that to a 1. There we go. So it made quite a bit of difference to it there. Anyway, this is it's not really a shader editor, I wouldn't say, but you could use it as such for sure. You can load additional files. These are just the shader files that I've included with it. They're all in the specified folder that knows where to find. And there's a really cool one here. Oh, this one's got mouse interactivity on it, if I remember correctly. So see, it interacts with the mouse. No, gosh. I've added so many here, I can't keep track of all of them now. Seascape, there we go. So this one's got mouse interactivity on it, but if I'm not moving the mouse, now this is running on a 4K monitor at 60 frames per second and looks phenomenal. Really does. You're not going to see probably as good because it's going to be video compressed. Oh, I can go here and make it full screen. There we go. Okay, so it's running 50 frames per second, but still very cool. And I can interact with the mouse, which I need to change the rate at which it interacts with the mouse or something because it's a little jerky there. But yeah, there we go. Let's exit out of that. So there's a lot more code in this one, but if you want to dive more into how shaders work and stuff, you can check that out right here. I will point out, though, if we go to the source code for this, the source, that I added FMX types in here, and I turn on global use metal for iOS and macOS. And then also here, I turn this off. This improves Windows shader performance. So without this, it wouldn't be quite as smooth on Windows. So turn that down off here, and that improves the performance. Some of this code you'll see will be the same for the other one. So here's the shader run. Here's the new disabled effect. That's so slick. And here's where I'm finding the shaders, loading the shaders in from there. It's a different path on different devices. So it works on iOS and Android in the media folder. And let's see, the shader run. Oh, this is because I'm using it. One of these is using a texture, an image texture, and that's included in there as well. So if you want to load image textures, let's say you do that. And then here's the run where we're getting the resolution of the screen. And then here's where I'm passing the mouse in. So when the mouse move, check to see if it's looking for an eye mouse. If it is, I pass in the mouse movements. And here's where it just loads the shaders in. That's create. Oh, this is where it does the frames per second. And yeah, loading the shader files in here. Yeah, that's it. Not a lot to it. I mean, there's 281 lines of code, but it's pretty straightforward, I think. So take a look at that. You can play with it. It's up on GitHub and the link is in the slides. This is the Skia4Delphi GitHub page. Actually, I guess here's the home page here, but the main thing you're going to do from here is go to the GitHub page. And here we have on the README. So there's this nice video in here that shows the really nice splash screen effect they have going on here, and then shows some of the mobile samples running on a iPhone. You can download the sample. It's got some good samples and there's some cool things you can do with it and figure that, see how that works and play with it there. But then here you can go down and it has the installation instructions, whether you're installing it through their installer or via GitHub, or you can actually install it via Chocolatey, which I'm a huge fan of Chocolatey. Shows enable Skia, and then some code samples and such in here, including right to left, PDFs, different graphic formats, etc. And I wanted to shout out here to, this is the Dev made this shell extension powered by Skia4Delphi that adds in the ability to view these Lottie files and TGSs, which is the Telegram sticker format, which is a subset of Lottie files in Explorer, which is really cool. And they have an editor here as well, so you can edit it and see what it's going to look like, which is pretty cool. I was actually had started something similar to this, and I'll show you mine, but this one's way better, I think. So this is my Telegram sticker browser. There's a little video of it up there. And these are just stickers I've downloaded from Telegram. I don't think I package all of these in here because I'm not sure how Telegram feels about you redistributing their stickers, but I do have some that I thought were easily redistributable there. So if you come in here and look in stickers, there's a few here. So the Spartan ones, these I actually had made, and I have the SVGs, the source files, as well as the AI files and the After Effects files. So you can use all those with the body movement plugin to export them as stickers. Actually, body movement is the Lottie one, and I can't remember what the Telegram one is, but you can find it. I think it's in the links in the slide for that. But here, I'll show you this one. You can watch the video of me here, but I will show this one real quick for you as well. So here is my Telegram sticker browser. I'm using a different style here as well because the one I was using was a premium style that I can't redistribute, but this is my second favorite style here. So I'll go ahead and run this guy. And I just discovered, I think I have a memory leak in here. So I'm going to avoid one of the larger, this one here's got a lot of emoji or stickers in it. So I'm going to avoid that one. But up here at the top, we have all of them where you can preview. And yeah, so these are the ones I felt like probably be easier to redistribute in mass because I got them from Lottie files. And then here is the Spartan one. Now you'll notice the Spartan ones are actually in here twice. That's because they're in there both as TGSs and Lottie files. So see, fist bump is there twice. Once the TGS and once the Lottie file. And you could go out and browse to different folders and whatever here. So I have a larger collection of Telegram stickers that I just have not uploaded to SourceForge. So these are really simple. Actually, let me show you the basics of how you would do this. Use a Lottie animation here. So I've got a new empty FireMonkey application here, and I'm just going to add a SK animated image down. And double click on it. Go to open and then browse out to where I have some Lottie files or TGS files. It'll open either kind. It also opens JSON, but it's expecting the JSONs to be Lottie. Also supports GIF and WebP. And I always change how I'm pronouncing GIF each time, so it throws people off. So I'm just going to open this one here. And that's it. It's actually defaulting to enabled right there. So I just run this and there's the animation. Now, this is being using the animation for the purposes of a animated picture, but you could also use it for, as I talked about, like animated sliders and other GUI animations in your user interface. If you want more information, you can follow the project on GitHub. They have a Telegram group you can join out there. I've posted some questions on there occasionally, and the Skia4Delphi homepage, which basically just directs you to the GitHub page. That's kind of the main hub for it. And then that's the where you can go watch the webinar originally, download the slides from there, but you'll get the slides via IT DevCon as well. And then here's some additional links. I will, they're in the slides. There is a new one I added here from this originally. This one's really cool. A Skia dev made the Skia shell extensions. Very cool, very useful. It lets you work with Lottie files, SVGs, and stuff right from your Windows Explorer. And big thanks to Vinicius and Paulo. And with that, we're going to do Q&A.